Once again, it's Thirsty Thursdays, and we're back again. So, in a continuation kind of with Jay-Z, but this time we want to talk about power again. And I remember because I'm such an avid football fan, we're currently the home of the world champion Philadelphia Eagles. But hey, who's to brag? I mean, look, there's a different champion each year, right? Just so happens to be us for this year. Colin Kaepernick. I remember back in, I think it was 2012, when they played the Baltimore Ravens. And because I could never really stand the 49ers because they're an NFC opponent, outside of back in the day when I was a kid watching Jerry Rice, I respected them. But, the Ravens by Baltimore being a little closer, and I kind of liked the team a little more and just different things like that. So, I actually rooted for the Ravens. And Colin Kaepernick, I'm telling you, what he did was unbelievable in that Super Bowl. And he came down, he almost won the Super Bowl for him. And you ever think about life, how it could be one thing that puts you this close to either being a Hall of Famer or just being a guy. And I truly believe that if he would have won that, willed them to win that Super Bowl, not saying that he would have gone on to win a lot of others, but the fact that if he would have willed them to win that particular Super Bowl against that great of a Ravens defense, and also because it's the 49ers and their storied history, he would have been on another level. But he didn't. So a few seasons went past. Then eventually he saw himself on the bench. And I know in 2016, and the reason why he saw himself on the bench was because, if memory serves me correct, his play had diminished a lot. Now, that could be due to coaching changes. That could be due to, sometimes in the NFL, if you're a sports watcher, especially the NFL, you'll know that a lot of times defensive coordinators, defenses, they tend to learn, make adjustments, and they learn things. They know how to play people a little better or differently because they understand your tendencies, because we all have them. So he started to kneel. And to be honest with you, as a football fan, a heavy watcher of football, I honestly didn't pay any attention to it. I think him and another guy, one of the safeties, I can't remember his name, started to kneel with him. So then it started to become more known watching football. Hey, what are these guys kneeling for, specifically during the national anthem? And they kept kneeling. So then more guys kneel. So then at the time, president, said, hey, they're kneeling, they're SOBs, they're this, they that. You should kick them off of their team. Jerry Jones even said, hey, listen, any of you guys that kneel, we'll put you off the team. And I think he did something to kind of smooth it over where they all kneeled together. But even in the community, a lot of people, and what I mean by community, black community, a lot of people didn't really understand why they were kneeling until eventually Colin Kaepernick, who because he's a black man, has the right to do it. But we never knew he was kneeling because of police brutality. He never, from I'll say my limited knowledge of knowing or hearing anything from him, had ever posted or said anything about, hey, listen, we need to do stuff about police brutality before that. So as a lot of us people who watched football for years, we kind of felt like it was a deal where, okay, his play was falling off. So, therefore he just, he was upset because he had been benched and he wasn't getting the playing time that he wanted. So then, of course, it went on and on and on. And then a lot of people know how it is. It became international news where he was now known to be kneeling for this police brutality that was going on at the time heavily against black men, and that he had essentially been blackballed out of the league. So here comes in Jay-Z, where because of when that happened, other artists had said that he had said, look, we're not going to play the Super Bowl. We're not going to play for the Super Bowl. Nah, nobody does it. But then he steps in, and it's reported that Roc Nation gets paid around $25 million per year to kind of oversee the whole production of the Super Bowl halftime show each year, even down to being the sole group that picks whatever talent is going to be on the stage for that year. So in some ways, power, but power over music because, hey, look, that's his wheelhouse is music, right? So it sounds pretty apropos. So then there's a lot of backlash. There's from other people, Jermaine Dupri, other people saying how, they were saying don't do it, but all of a sudden, because Jay-Z has stamped it and said, hey, look, this is a cultural thing. And even one time he said, look, we're beyond kneeling at this point. So people start saying, well, you know what? Jay-Z is a cultural icon. We'll ride with it. We'll go with it. But it seems a little hypocritical because he was kind of talking against it and telling people not to do the Super Bowl. But now that him and Rock Nation are on board to do it. So the spin I'm going to take on this is probably a little different than what other people would think, because I've even seen some stuff and the reason I'm bringing it up now is because it's starting to resurface again and, people are talking about it. First thing I would say is that just like with anything with sports, it's based off of how well you can play. And to be honest with you, as a sports fan, and just as a sports fan, I didn't think that he was continuing to play, and Colin Kaepernick, at the level to where he should have been a starting quarterback, or at least not for that team. Do I think he still could have played in the NFL? Heck yes. Do I think he was blackballed? Heck yes. We're never going to dispute any of that. But there is going to come a cultural conversation when it talks about should Colin Kaepernick had still been in the league / did Jay-Z do the right thing by taking on the NFL product or staying away? And my thing is that, not that I know what the right or wrong answer to that is, Colin Kaepernick did get a significant payout. Some people say 10 million, 20 million, 30 million. He did get a significant payout from the NFL. All right. So it's not like his career got cut short and he wasn't given anything. And I know that that's not the point. But still, he was compensated for a lot of this stuff that was going on. So I don't want to question his validity or his being credible as far as him standing up wholly for black people and their causes, because to be honest with you, haven't heard much about it. And as polarizing as a figure as he was at the time with it, I thought that there would be a lot more that we would see from Colin Kaepernick on that side. But here's the other side that I want to look at when we talk about Jay-Z and when we talk about culture and when we talk about always saying that this one person, because that's kind of the narrative, Jay-Z did things for his own pocketbook or his own purse. And the other thing I'm saying is that don't we all? Don't we all? Got this flying hair. Come on, dude. Don't we all? Don't most of us do things for our own benefit? And I get it, people who are considered the gatekeepers of stuff or the setters of culture, you want to look at them and hold them in higher esteem. And I get that. But don't we all look to obtain a certain amount of power? Don't we all look to obtain a certain amount of status? If we can. And I get it. Some people say, no, you know what, dog? I don't never want to be famous, man. I just want to I'm good right where I'm at. But if you had the choice, let's just say if you had the choice, because, this is something where this wasn't something that was given to Jay-Z. Jay-Z has put in a lot of work. He's made a lot of heads nod. He's sold a lot of clothes. He's done a lot of things. And let's face it, nobody's perfect. But the problem I typically have culturally with us is that we don't criticize the other people. We don't criticize the people that have taken away from so many great people that we know and we love. People rappers who have been running around and they can no longer take care of themselves benefit-wise. They can't have certain things. They don't have certain things benefit-wise. They've died poor or broke. And people will always blame a Puff or blame a Jay-Z. But what about the other powers that be? Does anybody ever blame them? No, isn't that funny? Isn't that funny how, culturally, we will always eat our own, but we are scared to go after somebody else. We are scared to look at who else has done all of this crazy stuff to us and the people that we love. But it's easy. I guess it's easy. It is easier to attack your family, right? It's easier to just attack them and say, hey, listen, I don't like what you did, because guess what? You owe me something. You look like me. You owe me something. And at some points, I understand that. But here's the deal. And this is the thing culturally with black people. Nobody owes you nothing. Because here's the deal. If they owed you something, it would be something saying, I owe you. And I get it. We all feel like we want reparations. We want this and we want that. But here's the thing. We never hold anybody else accountable but ourselves. And what I mean by that also, too, is that we rarely put ourselves in a position to make sure that other people are being held accountable. Half of us don't want to vote. Nobody wants to go march, including me. I don't feel like marching. I did plenty of community service and stuff, but I don't feel like marching. My knees hurt a little bit. Sometimes it gets a little too cold up here in the Northeast part of the country. Okay? So I'll admit my own shortcomings. But the thing is that we always look to different people, especially people in our own culture, to be these stand-up people. And I get it. I used to be there before. I used to say, hey, look, there's so many other things that can be done for Philly. I wish that Will Smith would come back, just come and give a free concert. Come and do this. Like people like Freeway, I've seen 1,000 times. But you know what? Freeway will do it 1,000 times because Freeway loves his city. But I look and say to other people, hey, listen, you know how bad the city needs you. Come on and do something for free. Come on and do something. And I remember somebody said to me before, well, what are you planning to do? And I said, well, look, I used to do community service. I've worked with kids going back and forth to jail. I've done a lot in my community. But you know what? I had to say, there's always something else I can do. So this is why I do this. This is why I want to talk like this, because I know that there are other like-minded people out here. Even though sometimes some of us let me down a little bit and I see it's only 17, 18 views, but that's okay. Because, like I've always said before, as long as I got you, even if it's just you and me, meaning there's only one other person watching, I'm glad that you want to hear something that I have to say. Because a lot of what I have to say is already what a lot of you already think. And if you haven't thought it, it's something to think about. That power comes in a lot of different forms. And unfortunately, community-wise, we don't have a lot of it. And we have to find a way to start to build it. And building is not by thinking a celebrity is going to be the end all to be all to something, or blaming them. Because it's funny, even me, at times, was I critical of Barack Obama? Yeah, sure. But the thing is that he's only one black guy out of 47 times that somebody could have been a president. 1 out of 47 times. Once. So before we start the blame game, and before we start to diminish our own power, let's sit and think. Let's sit and do. Let's make sure we get the power. How do you get power? I don't know. I don't have a lot of power. But one thing I do have power over is power over myself and what I can do to help other people. And a lot of times that's where it starts, because guess what? People have a problem helping other people. And I'm not talking about helping them saying, hey, man, you need a ride to the store. No. Really putting their foot behind, putting their funds behind, helping another person. Because a lot of times, and this is just in our culture, but in other cultures, people just get selfish. So it's always easier to point the blame at a Jay-Z. It's always easier to point the blame at somebody else. But very rarely do we point the blame at ourselves. You want to know why? Because even I know that's a hard thing to do. Because when you point the blame at yourself, that's in some ways admitting that you have failed, or admitting that you have not done the job that you know that you've been put on this earth to do. But the beauty about it is there's still time. So get it together. And live life. Don't let life live you.